Hey guys, so welcome back. So yes, there has been a lot of drama in the presidential election right now, and the question for today that I want to posit is, are we going to be fooled again? Are we going to be fooled again? Are Korean people specifically going to be fooled again by this rags to riches story? Namely in the candidate of Lee Jae-myung. Now, the polls are mixed, and right now I think because of all the scandals that are going on, you're seeing different results. But what is steady is the number that Lee Jae-myung is polling. So according to some of the polls, you'll see he's leading or he's behind, but the number that he's been able to get has never been able to break 40%. That's the consistent part. So sometimes he's number one, sometimes he's number two, but he's never been able to break 40%. Yoon Seok-yeol, on the other hand, has gone up and down like a roller coaster, but he's always been able, when he is way on top, to break 40%. Now, 40% is the magic number because once you're over 40%, that starts to give you a national mandate. National mandate means that you have enough of the public support across the nation to give you that legitimacy to rule the entire country, that you have enough of the people's support where you're probably not going to get like an insurrection somewhere. When you're kind of in the 30s in the beginning of your presidency, maybe on your way out, you can, like most of the presidents on their way out, they're always kind of like in their 30s. But when you start in your 30s, you're in big trouble. However, with all of the scandals surrounding Lee Jae-myung, and he's holding kind of steady there, it does show that he has a loyal base, and I'm wondering, are people still just going to stick by him because the story is just too good? Now, what is this story? This story is essentially the hope that people still have in Korea, that you can come from nothing and still make it. And that is the story that he does represent somewhat. Now, let's go over the facts of his life. So, what he does represent in terms of the image and the persona and the story that he's selling to the public is that he was born in very poor, dire circumstances. In Korea, they like to say that if you were born to privilege, you were born with a golden spoon. And then if you were, I guess, born in just ordinary circumstances, you were born with a soup spoon. And they're saying in his case, he was born with no spoon, like you don't even have a pot to piss in, I guess is the kind of like the British example. And the pot to piss in essentially like, before there were toilets, in the middle of the night, if you wanted to go to the bathroom, you kept a pot underneath your bed. Yeah, that's just, ew. Yeah, but that's what it was. If you were too poor, you didn't even have one of those. You actually had to go out in the cold to do your business, or I guess you had to hold it until, I guess, the morning. And so he was so poor that he, that was the expression. I'm sure, like, when he ate, he probably had a spoon. But then he also, to, I guess, explain why he didn't go to the military, he said that he injured his arm, I think it was his left arm or something, because he worked in a factory that made baseball gloves. Although there are a lot of reports that show that, he uses his injured arm fine, so there are some conflicts, that say that, he may be kind of like exaggerating that claim, but what he claims and what is official on why he did not do his military service was that he injured his arm while he was toiling away, working at a factory in his youth, at a baseball glove factory. So that creates a lot of great points in the whole rags to riches story. Also, he came up during this time, which is almost not possible anymore, but there were two routes to become a lawyer. One is like to kind of have like the privileged, kind of the educated way of taking the bar exam, or really just studying on your own to try to pass the bar exam. And he did it that way. And he was able to then become a lawyer. Then he ran for mayor, became the mayor, and then became the governor. And so then people are thinking like, wow, there's this guy that was able to make it through his grit and hard work. Now, the thing is, I think that people are forgetting that there is an extra plus part to hard work coming from rags to riches that is a lot of, people like to leave it out because it's hard to say, and it's also a dark cloudiness part of the story, and also it would really need a lot more investigation to 100% prove. But let's say it's not exactly the case of him, but in a lot of other situations, you definitely need some probable sponsor or some other entities helping you along the way that are not necessarily so savory. During his come up, especially during the time when he first started as becoming a lawyer, and then also when he was a mayor, there were a lot of allegations that he was involved with not so savory elements in the organized world of organizations that are not necessarily corporations that are registered and on the stock market, or if they are, they're kind of like front companies. Just catch my drift. And so I think people like to conveniently leave that part out. If you're really under the kind of the come up like that, you kind of probably had some dark circles of money somewhere. And so I think that if you really want to have that kind of fantasy story, you have to kind of parse out really what part of it is truth and what part of it is illusion. And we already have had a rags to riches presidential story with President Lee Jae-myung. That guy was very recently a rags to riches story. He grew up very poor. Then he became a super successful CEO of one of the affiliates of Hyundai. And then he became the president. And now he's in jail. So refer to him. He was the no spoon. Then we have President Park, total golden spoon. Her daddy was like the dictator president for years. Now she just got out of jail. She's about to get out of the hospital. Next month, she's about to announce probably something in terms of like what she's going to say politically as her statement. People are on pins and needles. Like, is she going to support the conservative candidate? Is she going to kind of like send out some coded messages like shade to be like, I finally got out of jail, like F you, like what's she going to be doing, Because they said that like, they were vindictive. They wouldn't even give her like a desk or a chair or something while she was in jail, and maybe that's why she got back problems, because she was trying to, apparently that's what they were saying, that she was trying to memorize an English dictionary. So maybe she was hunched over like the hunchback of like Notre Dame, and she was trying to maybe memorize an English dictionary. I don't know, maybe she wants to flee to America. The reason why it's very important that a president in Korea especially has over 40% of approval rating, especially when they first start, is that the president in Korea is more like a king president. They have a lot more powers, and they kind of serve like an emperor, especially in the beginning. And so you need to have more of the buy-in from the public. If you can't break 40%, then that's going to be a bit of a problem. Even right now, with Yoon Seok-yeol kind of going up and down like a yo-yo between 40, like, you know, and when he breaks 40%, is like 41, and then he kind of drops down. 41, and he kind of drops down. Like, you know, his wife kind of drags him back down. His kind of like glib statements about like, let's give poor people like food that is basically not fit for human consumption, drags him back down. Not a stable over 40% approval rating. However, if they do merge the parties between Ahn Cheol-soo and Yoon Seok-yeol and run a unified candidate, either one or the other, there's much greater shot that either one of them will have a steady over 40% chance of securing the vote. For a while, it was Ahn Cheol-soo, definitely way over 40%. Now, with Yoon Seok-yeol kind of like solidifying, stabilizing things, some polls say yes, but other polls are just like, no, still, it's a little bit funny with this whole situation. The problem still plaguing Lee Jae-myung. Right now, today, one of his top guys who was involved in that land scandal is being questioned by the courts, and he was the head of the city council that approved that real sketchy land development entity within the city that started off this whole land development deal that has led to these people disappearing and moving on to another world because they had things that they could have revealed to then perhaps expose who was really their real boss, which could have been the presidential candidate, Lee Jae-myung. And to kind of understand it in a quick nutshell, if you don't want to go back to the other videos to get like how would a mayor be involved in all of this, essentially how you can extract the profits of a land development deal was that usually when you hire the corporations to say like, okay, construction company, build us all of these buildings and then we're going to share the profits are supposed to go back to the city. And I'm the mayor of the city and, you know, like, oh, good, there'll be profits and then we'll just like give it to other great programs within the city. But they passed some sketchy laws that said, the city doesn't need the extra profits. Y'all just keep it, you know, y'all just keep it in this kind of like separate city corporation that we made. And then within that city corporation, they kind of like then decided where to send the profits to. And then they kind of sent it to these other sub-organizations that then kind of spread the money out. And those other sub-organizations, the people who were in charge of those sub-organizations were the ones that suddenly either offed themselves or got offed. And bye-bye. You see, that's what's scary and what's scaring people. Because people are saying that once they would have been pressured, they probably would have said, well, we were just forced to do this because this was a city project, and who is the head of the city? That is the story. So it is a question of whether this rags to riches story is still enough, because I think if you're looking at the stalled numbers with the polling, it seems as if it's stalling. Like, it is enough, but it's not as powerful as it once was. It's not like the carte blanche that it once was, and people are beginning to kind of question it. It's not as powerful of this, like, image that bleaches all sins. Like, it's beginning to kind of break through, and I think people are beginning to question, like, this is a little bit too much for coincidence. And I'm hoping that we will see more investigation come up more quickly, and that we don't just say like, oh, let's wait until the end of the presidential election because this is what the whole campaign process should be about, because by then it'd be too late. We're gonna have our president, and then it'll be too late because, like I said, the president in South Korea has a lot more powers and they can suppress this for about 5 years, and then maybe 5 years later, then he may or may not go to jail for it. But believe you me, well, you don't even have to believe me, just look at the past track record. He'll go to jail for something, because they all do. All right, guys, what do you think? Like, share, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.